Let's take a look at the shell scripts and Git assignments. So I added some more instructions here related to project 7.6 and the discovery 7.8. I had some problems trying to push my local repository to Bitbucket, and I eventually found a way to do that. You may need to do something similar. Often you won't be able to push with a password to your Bitbucket account, especially if you have uh, key pairs that you've used with Bitbucket before, or if you use, say, a Google account or some other account to authenticate your account with Bitbucket. So I have both of those problems, I think. I have a previous Bitbucket account that has SSH keys, and when I tried to put an SSH key in my new account, it gave me an error that the key already existed. And then I don't have a password set up because I used Google to authenticate myself with Bitbucket. So I used Google to get into Bitbucket instead of having a password. So what I had to do was make a new key to use with Bitbucket. It could be you just need to add a few things to your SSH locally to use that key with Bitbucket. So I just want to go over some of those things. Um, Once you get your local repository set up on your computer and you get a Bitbucket account and make an empty repository in Bitbucket, then you can use a command, something like this one right here, to add the Bitbucket repository as a remote repository. So here I'm adding the uh, Bitbucket repository under this particular account of mine in the repository called shell scripts. I'm naming it locally as origin. So my local computer thinks origin is the remote uh, Git repository for this project. And if I can authenticate myself with Bitbucket from the command line, then I should be able to push my main branch over to that. And again, a few of us had trouble doing that. We got authentication errors when we tried. So my solution was to make a new SSH key. And Bitbucket recommended that we attach the email address that we use with our Bitbucket account to that key. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm also specifying the kind of key I want, the size of key, and I'm also specifying the name for the key. Uh, I like to have a passphrase that protects my key. I highly recommend you do that. And it'd be a different passphrase or password than you use to log into your system. It's up to you to do that or not. So then once I have that, I want to use SSH add to add that new key to my SSH agent on my computer. You should make sure your SSH agent is running, and I have some lines back here to do that. And most of this stuff I got from a help article at Bitbucket, which I referenced somewhere right here. To see if the SS agent is running, you can do a ps-ax, and that's a space-ax, and then you can pipe it over to grep to see if it finds the SSH agent. If it finds it, great. If you get nothing or if you get an error, then you can start your SSH agent with a command like that right there. If you don't think you need to make a new key, then you can add your existing key using SSH add. So for example, my existing key back here, I could do a SSH add and then dot SSH ed. Oops. Oh, I'm not in my home directory. So tilde slash dot SSH slash ed. Okay. 25519 is the name of my key. So I would use that command to add the key to my SSH agent, which I did back here with my new key. So you can see in my SSH directory here, I have this key right here, which that's my default key. So that's what gets used when I log into a bunch of other servers I go to. And I made this new key pair called bbkey, bbkey.pub, and those are what I'm using to authenticate with Bitbucket now. So how does my system know when to use which key? Default, if I don't reference a key, then it's going to use the ID, ED. Oops, I referenced that down here wrong. That's why I got a beep at me. That should have been an ID. So that would add the key to my SSH agent, which I usually don't do, but for Bitbucket, it will make your life easier. Other thing, once your key is added to the agent, we want the agent to remember that each login. So then we have to make a SSH config file. So I'll show you my SSH config file next. And again, I have instructions for that over here. So if you don't already have a .sh/config file, you should make one and you will add these lines to it where this key is whatever key you're going to use. Maybe it's your ID underscore ED 25519 key. You'll have to figure that out. So let's skip that and then just go use nano. Actually, we're just going to use cat to look at my .sh config file. And you can see I just have 3 lines. If the host I'm trying to log into is bitbucket.org, then I want my agent to add my keys regularly. And the key I want it to add is this BB key, not my ID ED25519 key. And I haven't double checked that this is important, but Bitbucket said that, again, you should attach the email address that is used in your Bitbucket account to your key when you do that. All right, and let's just take a look at my public key, cat. And if we inspect this key, get out of the way, zoom. Zoom won't get out of my way, but I think you can see it. You can see the email address that I have attached there. And if I cat my other key, then on this one here, we can see that it's just my username on this computer and the name of the computer attached to the key. I don't recommend editing your key file with changing the email address. That could cause problems if the public and private keys don't reference the same email address. Again, I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's probably going to be true. So once you told the SSH agent to use my new key, and that key is attached to the email address I use for my Bitbucket account. And I made an SSH config file in .sh called config. And in that file, I added the lines that reference the host as bitbucket.org and the correct key to use. And this time it is the private key referenced here. Then I have to copy my public key and give that to Bitbucket. So if I go over to my Bitbucket account here and I go to settings, personal Bitbucket settings, security, SSH keys, I can see I have that particular key in here. And now I can push stuff. So let's give a push a try. So I'm in my shell scripts directory, and right now I have one file in there. So I'm going to add another file by copying that one to a new one. Let's call it scan IPs 2. And then now that's enough. I have a new file I could add, but I'm going to make some edits too. I'm going to go make an edit to scan IPs. And okay, we're going to add a note. So we're going to add it right before here. Need the dash E option. This may take a while. All right, let's save that and exit. Now, if I do a git status, I can see that I have an untracked file that scan IPs 2, and then I have a modified file. So I need to add those. So I need to do a git add, git as a T, and I'm just going to add both files. And you could just, if those are the only files in there, right, you could just add them all with a dot or a star. I'm just going to add them individually. Okay, so now they're added. So if I do my status, I can see it's changed, but they're staged. I still have to commit them. So next I have to do a git commit and put a message in there. Edited IP script and added another script. Okay. Once I've done that, I can then push my changes. Working point, if you have someone else you're working with on a repository like that, before you do a push, you should do a pull first to make sure there's nothing incoming. And I probably should have done that before I made my changes. So git pull already up to date. So now I'm going to do a git push -u origin main. So I'm pushing upstream to origin and I'm pushing the branch called main. And just to double check, let's go over to my repository. And for commits, I just have my initial commit where I added my first script. All right, so now let's try that. And it looks like it pushed successfully, meaning it was able to use my key. So now if I go to the upstream branch online and I look back at commits, I should see now I have this other commit, and it's going to show me that I added this new file here and I made a change to the other file right there. Cool, it works. All right, hope this helped. For the assignments, we did a whole bunch of work together getting this started, so there's nothing to submit for the first assignment, but for the second assignment, you're going to then pull the Bitbucket repository to your account on the server. So let's go take a look at that. And then you will give me a link to your Bitbucket or GitHub repository and let me know when you submit the assignment that you pushed it. So pretty much the same instructions here. We just need to do the clone. So let's look at that next. So for cloning, what you would do is you would go to the source page of your online repository, and there's a clone option up there. And you just pretty much copy that command. And then log into the server. I'm going to switch to a different place to do that. Oh, no, we'll stay here since it's got a big font. So I'm going to SSH over to my account at the server. All right, I'm in the server now. And it's going to ls, see what I have here. Let's check out my CS120 or 240, excuse me, directory. All right, so I'm going to cd into CS240. And then in here is where, oops, I could run this clone command. So what should happen after I run this command is it will basically take this repository here. Make this go away. There we go. And I should have a folder called shell-scripts, and in it will be those two files, and it will be a Bitbucket repository. Right, and so you can see right now, I do not have a shell-scripts directory here. So let's run the clone command. And this may require me to do a key exchange. We'll find out. Nope, it just wants to know if I accept the key fingerprint there. And public key denied. Okay, so I have to get my key from here into there. All right, let's do that next. Do I even have a key there? CD, no, let's just do an ls dot ssh. I do have a key pair here, so then I should just be able to cat the public version. And let's see if this will work without me having to mess with a new key. It might. All right, so then I'm going to copy all of this. Oops, Control-Shift-C. And see if I can drop that public key back here. Settings, personal settings, security, SSH keys. I want to add a new key. DCT server, paste. No expiration is fine. Okay, add the key. All right, let's try again to pull or to clone, which is like a pull, but a little bigger. Ask for the passphrase for the key. That's a good sign. Success. Got it. Cool. Okay. So again, I had to make sure I had a key pair on the computer that I'm at in order to get the public key onto the Bitbucket or GitHub server in order to pull or push files. So if I made some changes here, I could push them to the server, and then I could pull them into my other account on the local host. Fun with Git and SSH. All right, that's it for now.